Welcome back, friends. The last several weeks, we have been harvesting so much food from the garden. As a matter of fact, we decided to stop buying produce from the grocery store and only eat what we grow. So, for several weeks now, that's just what we have been doing. So, in this video, I want to share with you 4 delicious and simple meals that I made using only what we are growing in our garden. I am so excited to share a new zucchini recipe I discovered. Everyone in the family loved it so much. It's our new favorite. First, I'm going to be making meatballs with a side of fresh veggies. I'll start out by preparing our cream sauce. This sauce is really what makes this dish a home run for us. One of the main ingredients in this sauce is garlic. I am using about 5 cloves of garlic here. This may sound weird, but I really enjoy mincing garlic. I don't use a garlic press or any other gadgets because for some reason it feels satisfying to do it with a knife. Am I the only one who feels that way? Let me know in the comments. I chopped some basil and just a little bit of dill because we think dill can be a little too strong, so I didn't want it to be overpowering. But really, for this sauce, you can use any herbs that you enjoy. Every time I make this sauce, it varies because I'll use whatever herbs we have on hand. I hadn't used this basil and dill combination before, so I did a quick Google search to see if those two herbs pair well together, and turns out they do. We buy raw cream from a local farmer and we culture or sour the cream, and this thick, delicious goodness is the result. Cultured cream is so nutritious and a very important part of our diet. Check out this cream, you guys. We use the fermented cream in desserts as well, and it is amazing. I'm using cream for this sauce, although I've also made it with yogurt before. Right now, one of our sons cannot tolerate yogurt, only cream. So making it with cream made sense. I added about a teaspoon of salt. I always add salt to taste. I find that it is so important to taste my food as I cook, so I can make the necessary adjustments if I need to. I'm going to let this sauce sit in the fridge while I make the rest of the meal. I want the garlic and the herbs to really infuse their flavor into the cream. We eat a lot of beef. I would say that's our main protein, and honestly, ground beef is so versatile and easy to prepare. I would say we eat chicken once or maybe twice a week and beef the rest of the week. We haven't tried lamb, but I'm very intrigued. And I guess we should try rabbit meat since that's something we could actually raise in our suburban lot. Although my husband Glenn is not on board with the idea of meat rabbits yet. Living in the suburbs doesn't allow us to raise our own meat, but meat is definitely a big part of our diet. We buy all our meat, milk, and cream from a local farmer. When it comes to making these meatballs, I just decided to keep it very simple. All I added was salt, no other spices necessary. If the meat is properly salted, it will taste amazing all on its own. Here I'm adding a little bit of chicken stock that I made the other day, just so the meatballs wouldn't dry up. Check out the texture of this stock. It is so thick and gelatinous. It just means it's full of gelatin and collagen and so nutritious. These will go in a 375-degree oven for about 20 minutes. I honestly didn't time it, but I really just go by eye. If it looks ready, then I'll take it out. While the meatballs are in the oven, it's time to get the veggies ready. We've been harvesting so much cucumber. I have over 15 cucumber plants, and we are swimming in cucumbers right now. I had this lovely plan of turning them into pickles, but that hasn't happened yet. I'm still hoping I'll get around to it. The boys went out to harvest cherry tomatoes. We get about 5 pounds of cherry tomatoes every other day. They are a favorite in our home, and we only get to enjoy them in the summertime. This particular day, the boys got 7 pounds of cherry tomatoes. which I think is just unbelievable. Next, I chop the cucumbers. If our cucumbers got a little too overgrown and the seeds are too big, I'll remove the seeds. But these ones were okay. I'm adding some thin slices of red onions just to give it a little kick. And I also think the deep purple color from the onion looks so good against the pale green cucumbers. And that's all there is to it. No hard to find ingredients from the store, just simple, fresh, homegrown ingredients. This meal was a hit, and best of all, it was very simple and quick to make. For this next meal, I'll be making tomato sauce. This will be our first time this season, and I'm so excited because we finally have enough tomatoes to make sauce. I like to remove the skin and the seeds before making the sauce. It's just easier on our digestive system. The way I do this is by cutting each tomato in half and removing the seeds. Then I roast them in the oven at 400 degrees for about 20 minutes or until their skins are all wrinkled and starting to peel off. While the tomatoes are in the oven, I will roughly chop an onion, which will go into the sauce, and peel a couple of garlic cloves. I'm also getting the herbs ready. I have oregano here. Everything is smelling amazing at this point. Next, I have thyme. I remove the leaves from the stem. The leaves are already so tiny, but I like to mince them up a little bit more anyway, just to make them even finer, and also for them to release their aroma and flavor. I added a couple sprigs of rosemary. Again, I removed the leaves from the stem and minced them as well. I like to mince my herbs as finely as I can because I will not run these through the blender like I will the garlic and the onion. Finally, I mince some basil. Again, I don't follow a recipe. I go by what looks good and tastes good and smells good. Unfortunately, I can't eat tomato, so I can't taste the sauce as I cook it. But I have very willing members of my family that will happily taste test for me. This is what the tomatoes will look like when they're ready, and they will also be very easy to peel. I remove the skin and throw the tomato flesh in my Vitamix blender along with the onions and garlic. By the way, I've had this Vitamix for 13 years and it's still going strong. We have used it so much. This is one kitchen appliance that I'm so glad we invested in. I will cook the sauce for a little bit before adding the herbs. While the sauce was cooking down for a bit, I cooked the ground beef. Then I added the herbs. I had a feeling that I had too much oregano, so I didn't add all of it into the sauce. Later, when my husband tasted it, he said it was perfect and told me not to add the rest of the oregano. I added salt as well, and my husband let me know when it was enough. It was time to get our zucchini ready to serve as our base for this dish. We don't eat pasta, and we like using zucchini as a replacement. Sometimes I use a julienne peeler to make the zucchini look more like spaghetti noodles, but it can be a little bit more cumbersome, and I decided to give the zucchini a quick chop instead. It's delicious this way, but I just want to let you know that this is not the life-changing zucchini I talked about earlier. That one's coming up later. You're not going to want to miss it. We ended up adding the ground beef into the sauce, and then it was ready to serve. This meal was loved by everyone. If we had cheese, my son would have enjoyed it over his sauce, but we were serious about not buying food from the grocery store, so we went without it. This next meal is so simple and quick. While Glenn was grilling the steaks, I was making a salad. This cucumber and tomato salad is a favorite at our home. For us, it's a true taste of summer. We don't buy tomatoes when they're not in season, so it's something that my family really looks forward to and enjoys so much throughout the summer. There are certain things we don't buy from the store and will only eat them if we grow them, even if it means going without it for some months. Besides all the health benefits from eating foods that are in season, it's also good for us to anticipate the different foods each season provides for us. All I really need to do is chop the cucumbers and slice the cherry tomatoes in half. I will make a dressing to go over this. For the dressing, I'll use 2 cloves of garlic again. You'll notice a theme here. We have garlic in all our meals. Because I'm using it for dressing, I have to mince it very finely. We love garlic, but we don't love biting into big pieces of garlic. To the garlic, I add some olive oil. Because we haven't gone to the grocery store in several weeks, we ran out of olive oil. I would have preferred to have more olive oil in this dressing, but it worked out fine. I let the garlic infuse the oil while I worked on mincing some basil. I added the basil to the salad, added salt to the oil and garlic, about a teaspoon, but tasting and adjusting as well. Also, I added a splash of apple cider vinegar. And that's pretty much it. The salad was ready, and I poured the dressing over the salad and tossed everything together. In the past, we've added diced avocado and even cubes of Gouda cheese. But again, we did without it since we were staying away from the grocery store. I love making food that nourishes my family and that they love to eat. By the way, just because we've been avoiding the grocery store doesn't mean we haven't been enjoying dessert. We are able to harvest a handful of strawberries each day, and my family loves to eat strawberries with either cream or yogurt. We make our yogurt every week using the raw milk from a local farm. On to our final meal for this video. And if you have made it this far, you are in for a treat because this is where I get to share with you an amazing way to cook zucchini. We've been cooking zucchini in all kinds of ways the last several weeks, so it was time to try something new. Not surprisingly, I found this recipe on YouTube. Apparently, it had gone viral about a year ago, but I had never heard of it. So, just in case you haven't seen this before, I hope you try it, and I hope it changes your life as much as it did ours. Well, as much as food can change one's life anyway. I mentioned that we eat chicken about once and sometimes twice a week. So here's the one chicken meal we made this week. Glenn is cooking a whole chicken in a deep air fryer. And while that's happening, I'm working on a couple of different sides. I'm starting with the zucchini. I slice it in half and then using a paring knife, I'm scoring each half. First, I'm going one direction and then I'll go the opposite direction so the lines cross. This is actually a crucial step because it's what will give the zucchini that wow factor. I'm setting them on a tray, but they're not going in the oven yet. First, I sprinkle some salt and set it aside to rest for at least 30 minutes. The salt is going to help draw water out of the zucchini, and that will help it not get too soft and mushy as zucchini tends to do. While the zucchini is resting, I will chop some beets. These beautiful red and white beets are Chioggia beets. I just love the white stripes. I have a baking sheet ready with parchment paper just because I don't like to deal with the crusty bits of beet juice that get stuck on the pan. The oven is preheated to 350 degrees. Next up are some carrots. I will chop them roughly the same size as the beets so they can cook uniformly. We make sure to add lots of coconut oil. Sometimes we use ghee instead. Either one tastes amazing. I salt them, although it's also okay to salt them after they come out of the oven. They will need to bake for about 20 to 30 minutes or until they're nicely roasted. Back to the zucchini. You will notice that on the surface, there is some water that's just sitting there. I'm using paper towel to absorb as much of the water as possible. While I'm doing this, I have my cast iron skillet heating up with some coconut oil. Once the pan is nice and hot, I place the zucchini face down. The zucchini will not cook all the way through in the skillet. The purpose is to sear that side and give it a beautiful look. You want it to be brown and crispy, not mushy. That's why it's important to have a hot skillet. Once it's ready, I just flip it over and transfer it onto a baking sheet that will go in the oven. I'm cooking a lot of zucchini, so I have to do several batches of this. While the zucchini is going, it's time to make a special dressing to go over the zucchini. The different recipes that I saw used different ingredients, but I adapted it to what I had on hand. And of course, we have plenty of garlic, basil, oregano, and thyme. While I finish mincing the herbs, I just want to take a minute to say that if you're growing food in your garden and using it to nourish your body, you're doing an amazing thing. The only reason I got into gardening, it's because of my and my husband's health early on in our marriage. We were both in really bad shape. We had so many health issues, and we were able to heal them by eating real and natural food. We gave up packaged foods years ago and never looked back. Can we take a moment to appreciate the beauty of these zucchinis? That sear makes it look so good. These now have to cook in the oven until they are cooked all the way through, but firm. You don't want them to be falling apart. It wasn't until a terrifying diagnosis that I started to think about the food that I put in my body. And now I love that this way of eating has become a legacy that we are passing on to our boys. There are days that the garden seems like too much work, or days that I don't want to cook. We cook all our meals from scratch, every single day. There are no breaks. Well, I don't do it alone. Glenn is an amazing husband who has learned to cook over the years. And even though he has a full time job, he will also cook sometimes to give me a break or to give me time to get my work done. I'm not saying this to brag about my husband. I'm saying this so you know that I don't do all this on my own. This lifestyle isn't easy, but it is so worth it. I added salt to the dressing, adjusted the oil amount to get the consistency I wanted. This is something I'll definitely be making again. Everyone loved eating zucchini in a new way, and all the components of the meal worked very well together. It truly is a blessing that we can cook using only the produce from our garden. It was an experience that taught us to be creative, to be patient, to have more self control, and it definitely helped us appreciate all the hard work that goes into growing food. I hope you are inspired to try something new or different with the food you've been harvesting this summer. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.